Okay, we're starting a new section. This is a section where we're really starting to get into the crux of geometry. And in order to kind of really learn some geometry, we need to start by learning the vocabulary of geometry. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to teach you a lot about the vocabulary of geometry, and then tomorrow when we're in class, I'm going to actually teach you how to use a protractor, which is the tool that we use to measure angles, to actually measure an angle or to draw an angle of a specific measure. It's a lot easier to do that part in person than it is to do that on a video. Okay, our most basic item for building a building block in geometry is called a point. And a point is a specific location in space with no size or shape, and it's represented by a dot and labeled with a capital letter. So for instance, I can call that point A, and I'm going to label it point A. The next building block is called a line. A line, you've probably seen this before, is a never-ending straight path of points extending in two directions. So I might draw a line like this. And I can label a line in several ways. If I plot 2 points on that line, like B and C, then I can call that line BC, and I label it with a symbol above it that looks like a line with 2 arrows on either end. I can also call that line, if I want to, like a lowercase or cursive one letter. So like I could also call that line L. That's a cursive L. But mostly what you're going to see probably in this course is labeled with 2 points, just like that. So now we're going to learn about array. An array is a part of a line that extends from one point forever in one direction. So it'll start in one place and extend forever in one direction. So it's got an arrow at the end of there. And so if I want to name this ray, I could name it ray DE. I always want to label it. When I'm naming it, I always want to name the end point first. So even if my ray were extending in the opposite direction, if my ray went this way, let's say, and this was X, Y, I would still call this ray YX because Y is the end point. See how Y is the end point there? And Y will be my first point listed, even though it looks like it's going in the opposite direction. It's just the symbol that I use. I just want to make sure that I label the end point first. Okay, so now we're getting to the subject of today's lesson, angle. An angle is formed by 2 rays that have the same end point. So I can draw an angle over here. Here are 2 rays. They both have the same end point. Let's call this BAC. There are many different ways I can name this angle. First of all, sometimes you'll even see a number inside the angle. I'm going to put a number there. So we'll call this angle, and that's the symbol for angle, angle BAC. We could also call it angle CAB. Notice that in both of these cases, the vertex of the angle, the vertex or the endpoint that is shared by the 2 rays, is the letter that comes in the center. So this is called the vertex, and these are called the sides of the angle. Sides of the angle. So when I am naming it, when I use 3 letters, I want to make sure that the vertex is the middle letter. In this case, because there's no confusion, I could also call this angle A. And because I put a number inside the angle, I could also call it angle 1. So there are actually 4 different ways that I could name this particular angle. Now sometimes if you have a more complicated picture, you can't use, for instance, this method when you just name the 1 letter. For instance, let's say I gave you this picture, and here is my angle BAC, and then here's another point D. If I start to refer to angle A, it might be confusing. Am I talking about this angle right here? Or maybe I'm talking about this angle right here. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm talking about this one. It's not clear. So if it's ever not clear from the picture, then you should use labeling that will clear it up for sure. So in this particular picture, if I'm referring to this angle, I would definitely want to call it by the 3 letters BAC or angle CAB. So just to get the definition written down, the vertex of an angle is the common endpoint of the two rays of the angle. So if we are drawing our two rays, here is the vertex, because that is the common endpoint of the two rays. That's the vertex of the angle. The degree is the common unit we use for measuring angles, and you've probably heard the word degree before. You can think of doing a 360, and that means turning around fully in a circle, or doing a 180, that means turning from one side, backwards to the other side, or halfway around a circle. Now, a protractor is a tool that's used to measure angles, and we're going to use this tomorrow in class. It basically looks like this, and it's got measures from 0 all the way to 180 degrees. It's got actually two scales. One's on the inside and one's on the outside, so one will go from 180 from one side to the other, from 0 to 180 on the inside, and then one will go from 180 to 0 on the outside, or vice versa, depending on the protractor. We will learn more about that tomorrow. Okay, we're going to talk about how to classify angles. So, the first type of angle we're going to talk about is a right angle. And a right angle has a measure of 90 degrees. So if we say that, let's say the measure of angle A is 90 degrees. Let's see, this reads the measure of angle A. That little m before the angle means measure of angle A is 90 degrees. That's how you read that out loud. And what that means, a 90-degree angle, since we know that, just as a reminder, going all the way around a circle from the start to the finish is 360 degrees. So a 90-degree angle, you guys have seen this before, probably in 6th grade or before. A 90-degree angle is 1/4 of the way around 360, right? 1/4 of 360 is 90. And the way that we show that an angle is a right angle is we put this little box on the inside. That's showing that it's a right angle, this box right here. If you have a box there, that means it's a right angle. And remember, we're going to judge by how we label the picture, not by how it looks. So if I'm one time on the board, if I am a little bit careless and I draw an angle that looks like that, but I put the box there, that means it's a right angle, even though to your eye it might not look like a right angle. Okay, the next type of angle we're going to talk about is an acute angle. An acute angle is an angle whose measure is between 0 and 90 degrees. So if that's angle B, we can say that 0 degrees is less than the measure of angle B, which is less than 90 degrees. It has to be between 0 and 90 degrees. Okay? A third type of angle is called an obtuse angle. I'm guessing that some, or maybe all of you, have heard of these words before. An obtuse angle, we'll call it angle C, for instance. Angle C is where the measure is actually between 90, measure of angle C is between 90 and 180 degrees. Okay? So an acute angle is smaller than a right angle, and an obtuse angle is larger than a right angle. There's one other type of angle we're going to talk about, and that's called a straight angle. A straight angle is exactly what it sounds like. It's when you take two rays, one ray going this way, one ray going the exact opposite way, so that this measure is actually exactly 180 degrees. It's called a straight angle because it makes a straight line. So if this is D, I know to you it might not look like an angle, it just looks like a line, but it's actually two rays and they have a common endpoint of D. So the measure of angle D is actually exactly equal to 180 degrees. To classify the following angles. So go ahead and I'm going to write 4 angles here, and I'm going to have you, once I've written them all up, then I'll have you pause the video, classify them, and then turn the video back on. Okay, let's take a look at these 4 angles and see if you can classify them using one of the terms that we just used, that we just learned. Go ahead and pause the video and then turn it back on. So hopefully you realized that number 1 was an acute angle. On number 2, I wonder what you called that. Did you call that a right angle? Unfortunately, I did not put a right angle mark in there, so it's unclear. I could have made an 89.9 degree angle or a 90.02 degree angle. It's not clear that that's a right angle. You can't label that. So you'd have to say, I don't know, not sure. Number 3, hopefully you knew that that was a straight angle. And number 4, that is an obtuse angle. So again, from number 2, the only way you'd know that that was a right angle is if I tell you either that that's a 90-degree angle, by writing actually a box in the corner, or if I told you by giving you the measure. These would be right angles. So tomorrow during class, we are going to learn how to use a protractor. I have protractors in the class. We're going to learn how to use a protractor to both measure an angle and to draw an angle with a given measure.